What if the woman you love has quietly taken control of your marriage and you didn't even notice? If you've ever felt like a sidekick in your own life, constantly criticized, dismissed, and ignored, this live stream is your wake up call. Today, we're exposing the type 3 captain dynamic and how you can reclaim respect, how you can reclaim attraction and leadership in your relationship. So stay with me because this could change everything for you. We're going live.
We'll do it live.
You're listening to the premier podcast for men who want to not only be better with women, but want to be better men in general. This is the Come On Man podcast. And here's your host, Paul Bauer.
What's going on, guys? It's Monday again. Rough weekend for me. Made the decision Friday that it's time to send my professional podcasting dog across the Rainbow Bridge. So I have to call the vet about it right after the show. So please send positive vibes this way. If you guys are new to the channel, my name is Paul Bauer, and I help men level up and get better with women. The funny thing about doing that is that it makes us better men in all areas of our lives. Today, we're finishing up my 3-part series on the 3 types of dysfunctional captains that men find themselves, those types of, archetypes that men find themselves in when their marriage or their relationships are going downhill. If you're not familiar with those concepts, it was brought to the public by Ryan Stone. I was hoping that he could come on the show today, but he never got back to me on that, but that's okay. In his book, Praxeology Volume 2, though, that's where I first learned about it. Ryan breaks down the 3 types of captains. And after thousands and thousands of field reports of men swapping notes in Red Pill forums, this guy, Jack 10 of Hearts, I'll drop a link to the original forum post here. He basically was like, man, after all these all these different guys swapping notes and everyone thinking they're a special snowflake in the space and that their relationship is different, it turns out that all men's suffering is pretty much the same in relationship. And so basically they were able to boil down the 3 dysfunctional types of relationships that tend to be. And this is all based on Athol Kay's original concept of the captain and a first officer relationship being like the ideal relationship, right? And I've changed that to captain executive officer because I'm a Navy man. I'm not a Star Trek nerd, but Ryan really broke it down well, and he was able to fit in different field reports into what each captain scenario looks like. So we're talking about the type 3 captain today. We're going to be talking about what it is and how you can turn this dynamic around. So be sure to stick around until the end today, okay? Before we get into it, though, do be sure to like, subscribe, hit those notifications. I do have new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, no matter what is going on in my life. If you guys are watching live right now, please sound off in the comments. I want to hear from you, and do consider sending super chats. That supports the show probably more than anything else. Nurse Chick and I are going on a cruise at the end of the month, and I'm not going to be live for like 4 episodes straight, which means that I got to spend a Sunday recording back-to-back episodes that I can schedule out so that you guys can get your content, but I will always have an episode out. So, what is a type 3 captain? That's what we're going to talk about today. The type 3 captain is where the husband has been relegated to the role of first officer, if he's even lucky. If he's even lucky. And then his wife is the captain, right? So the name of this archetype is the captain and her husband, right? So the wife basically takes control over every aspect of the relationship, leaving the husband marginalized and emasculated. Now, I've met several type 3 captains in my life, but notably my daughter, my daughter's boyfriend, his dad is a type 3 captain. That guy, his wife is the major breadwinner. She works for a major pharmaceutical company, and he basically like has he's never really done much with his life. All he's ever done is followed his wife around. She had to, I think they were originally living in like North Carolina or something like that. And she got this major career opportunity to go move to Indiana. So he followed her there, and he just does like, I think he's like a secretary somewhere. Like he doesn't really do that much. And she totally runs the entire household. And the funny thing is that, they're very religious, like they're like ultra religious. And so his wife has this constant conflict of wanting her husband to be more dominant, wanting her husband to be the leader in the relationship, wanting her husband to be, the household sort of patriarch that the Bible talks about. And, but she can't let him. She won't let him. Anytime she tries to push him in that direction, like, hey, I need you to lead. And he starts like trying to make decisions. She shuts him down and does whatever she wants to do. It's like, bro, like, good Lord, man. My ex-wife's aunt was like that. Her aunt was, just a ball buster of a woman, and just totally bulldozed her husband. That guy was helpless when she was around. She was like a total raging alcoholic and drug addict too. And I'm talking like, prescription pain meds and stuff. She was always like, hopped up on OxyContin and stuff. And one time she like ended up in the hospital, and like dude didn't even know how to like fend for himself and stuff, because she just did like, she ran everything for him. Right. Publicly a type 3 captain, which is the wife in this instance. She often undermines the husband with critical or sarcastic comments, reinforcing her dominance. So anytime like he even tries to do something good, she craps on him in front of everybody, belittles him and stuff like that. So this dynamic is fueled by her insecurities and the husband's abandonment of his own map or male action plan, which leads to a complete loss of frame and authority. Basically, he's let her step into the driver's seat, and he's just a passenger now, she runs absolutely everything. So that's basically your typical type 3 captain. Let's see here. We got some guys in the comments here. Phil's in the house. He says, hoorah, Phil. Nerd Chick's in the house. She says, morning, gentlemen. I'm going to give her this one.
So naughty.
I'm going to come.
You know it. Brother Kamal's in the house. He says, because I said smash that like button on your way in. He says, smashed it harder than Will Smith. Wade Emery. Hey, Paul. Hey, Wade. What's going on, brother? Mike says, be sure to change your shirt for each episode. Well, yeah. Good point. Well, I can't promise anything, Mike. I can't promise anything. Oh, Chad Elkins is in the house. He says, Net Nursic, I have to say, having a nurse for a girlfriend, absolute rules. Got the flu last week. She knew exactly how to take care of me. Yeah. I was just telling Nurse Chick, was it last night or this morning? I can't remember, but I was saying that when women are pregnant, I was reminding her, because she used to be a labor and delivery nurse. I was just reminding her that when women go into labor, yeah, it's very painful, but it's almost as bad as when a man has a man cold. It's women almost know what it's like. It says, my wife's boyfriend doesn't let me be dominant. Oh God. Don't say that. Don't say that in public, man. Let's see here. Oh, Cabal sent a €5.99. He says, for your first cocktail on the cruise, keep that chin up, brother. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Because you are a beer club brother, I'm going to bump you up to the $10 super chat.
Thank you for the super chats. Boobies bouncing, can't stop that. From the east to the west, you are the best. Keep those chats coming in, let's do it all again.
It's hard to be sad when there's titties bouncing around. Oh man, guys, follow me on social media. Oh, that's not what I wanted, but do hit that like button and subscribe and hit those notifications. Follow me on social media. The links are in the description. Get on the email list.comeonmanpod.com, and get my free ebook, She's Made You Weak. I'll also mail you some stickers. If you don't want the stickers, just put don't want stickers in the address field. I won't waste a stamp on you. I'm not coming to your house. Don't worry about it. And then guys, get my new book. If you go to books.comeonmanpod.com, that'll take you to my Amazon authors page where you can find all 3 of my books. But my latest one, Get Her to Fuck You Again, a red pill guide to fix a dead bedroom. It's a #1 new release right now in like 3 categories. So I'm going to play a commercial for that, and then we'll get back to the topic today.
Are you tired of the dead bedroom? Wondering what happened to the passion, the connection, and the spark? Well, here's your answer. Introducing Get Her to Fuck You Again, a red pill guide to fix a dead bedroom, now on Amazon. This isn't about manipulation or tricks. It's about real strategies that work. If your wife has stopped being intimate with you, it's not because the love is gone. It's because the attraction is gone. And that's fixable. This book will teach you the skills to lead your marriage, rebuild your confidence, and become the man she can't stop thinking about. 3 reasons to get this book. 1. It breaks the cycle. You'll learn how to stop doing the same things that are killing her attraction and start doing the things that reignite it. 2. It's practical and proven. With clear, actionable steps, you'll build yourself into the man you were always meant to be. 3. It works for men like you. Paul Bauer has helped hundreds of men just like you fix their dead bedrooms. And now, it's your turn. Don't let another day go by feeling frustrated and disconnected. Go to Amazon right now and buy Get Her to Fuck You Again. Read it, apply it, and watch your marriage transform. The connection isn't gone forever. You just need the roadmap to get it back. And this book is it.
We're getting more reviews, which is awesome. Let me share this with you guys real quick. Here's a couple of newer ones here. Bob says, direct and unapologetic relationship advice. This book offers a blunt, practical approach to tackling intimacy issues in a relationship. I appreciate how it focuses on self-improvement, like reclaiming confidence, setting boundaries, and understanding attraction dynamics, which feels empowering. The insights on communication and handling relationship tests were particularly eye-opening. Some parts might feel overly simplistic or polarizing depending on your perspective, but it delivers actionable advice for those ready to take charge of their situation. A thought-provoking guide for anyone seeking to rekindle passion and connection. And then Matthew Rosenblum said, this is a man's book. Starting with the title and intro, I can tell you this is a man's book written by a guy that has no issues with confidence or talking to the opposite sex. I do agree with some of the concepts described throughout the book, including how to keep things interesting in the bedroom. How to decide if the relationship is even worth saving and staying in shape to keep your woman interested. I'm not sure I would call these concepts groundbreaking. They're really not. It's almost like what is it? It's common sense. Like you would think it was common sense, but men aren't taught to do this shit anymore. We're taught to be overly accommodating and validation seeking from women. So, it's just guys just don't know this stuff, However, the idea of exuding confidence and masculinity are topics that are highlighted and worth taking into account. Overall, a fun book. Well, thanks, Matthew. 5 stars nonetheless. Okay, back to the topic, guys. So what problem does this dynamic cause, right? Like I can see the feminists out here going, well, what's wrong with having a dominant wife? What's wrong with her being in charge? You male chauvinist, you raging misogynist. Well, it causes an erosion of respect, right? So the wife dominates decision-making and disregards the husband's input, furthering the imbalance. So, what really tends to happen here is just the loss of polarity, the loss of true polarity in the relationship. The husband becomes a passive participant to his own wife, fostering resentment. So, honestly, I'll say this. A lot of guys in this circumstance probably don't even they don't have a lot of resentment for it. They're resenting the fact that they're probably not getting laid anymore, right? Like that's a problem for them. But otherwise, life's pretty good. They don't have to think about anything. Their wife handles everything, right? But the wife hates it, right? She thinks she's constantly belittling him, and that doesn't feel good to be belittled, especially in front of all friends and family and public and stuff like that. So of course he doesn't like that. But the reason why she's doing that is because she has no respect for him, right? Like he's a total pushover baby. Emotional frustration. So constant emasculation leads to feelings of inadequacy and anger in the husband, right? Like it doesn't feel good to be constantly belittled, does it? Right. But these guys have no power in the relationship, and they don't have a leg to stand on. If they try to start enforcing boundaries, she just completely shuts them down because, you know, she's just bulldozes over him. The wife may experience dissatisfaction due to the absence of a strong masculine presence. So I've been saying this for years, right? But even the most bossiest of boss bitch women want a man that's more dominant than she is, right? They want a guy that won't put up with their crap and that will put them in their place. The problem is, right, ladies, the problem is this is you, right? A guy who's naturally in his masculine presence, right, naturally dominant in his interactions with women, if he has to constantly fight you for power, it's not worth his time. There's plenty of other women out there that aren't going to be such pig-headed, you know, CUNTs. So a lot of guys will just be like, okay, this isn't worth their time. So they won't even get into a relationship with you. So what you end up doing is you end up getting with an enabler, right? You end up getting with a guy that lets you be dominant, and then you hate him for it, right? So you're never going to be happy. You're never going to be happy, ladies who are like this. Not all women are like that. Yeah, we all know. We fucking know, Sandy. Okay. Stagnation in intimacy. So the lack of polarity in the relationship diminishes sexual desire and intimacy, right? Without that polarity, without that masculine feminine energy, like the attraction's gone. It completely goes away. That's where the dead bedroom tends to come in. Scheduled or transactional sex becomes the norm if it exists at all, right? Tuesday night, it's sexy time. Sexy time. Hey, honey, it's 9 o'clock. You promised, honey, it's 9 o'clock. You promised the sexy time. Jesus Christ. Social isolation. The husband's life becomes dictated by the wife's social circle and preferences, often at the expense of his own identity and friendships. You know, this happens to a lot of guys, even if they're not in the type 3 captain dynamic, right? A lot of guys like get rid of all their friend circles and they make their wife their sole arbiter of social interactions outside of work. And then and so they don't really have any friends, right? They have, like, their wives have friends, and then their wives bring their friends over and their friends and their friends' husbands. And so then you just end up talking to your wife's friends' husbands, but they're not your friends, you know. that's not much of a social circle, which leads to social isolation. The husband's life becomes dictated by we already said that already, right? So yeah, some problems there. Doesn't sound good. Doesn't sound good, right? Mike Steele sent a $10 super chat. That synth music in your ad makes my brain say this: in a world where wives go unfucked, one cyborg, Rex Power Cult, has one plan: to screw all the wives. Part man, part machine. Guess which part? Oh, fucking hell. All right, you get for that one, because you're also a Beer Club brother, I'm going to bump you up to the $20 super chat. Here we go.
Super chat, we see you there. Shake it, dance without a care. Send it love from everywhere. Groovy beats we all can share. Your support is so divine. Moving closer to the line. Thank you, you're the best. Party on, we never rest.
Oh, man. Guys, get into Beer Club, beer.comeonmanpod.com. It's a good group of dudes. We have like a little over 50 guys in there now. And it's just a great place to swap notes, talk about guy stuff. It's a great place to have an outlet, you know, because a lot of guys, like I said before, don't have friends, right? They have their wives have friends, and then they bring their friends' husbands over, and you got to talk to those assholes, and you don't even like them. Like, this is a good way to make some good friends. Great place to bring your problems. I told the guys in not the beer club proper, but the guys in the beer club gratitude group about my dog and the problems I'm having with my dog, and it's really helpful for situations like that. And we're having our meetup on Thursday. We have monthly hangouts over Telegram video chat. And it's just a great place to connect with other like-minded men in the space. Let me play a commercial for that real quick.
Here's a harsh truth that everybody gets upset about online when I say it. They get upset because of their ego investment into the fairy tale idea of love and partnership. They get upset because of their ego investment into the idea that their woman is their best friend, their confidant, and they think that love will conquer all, and that their woman will be there through thick and thin. The truth is that as a man, your woman is hardwired biologically and psychologically to want you to be her rock. It doesn't work the other way around. Women do not care about your struggles as a man. They may think they care. They may even want to care, but her evolutionary DNA will not let her care. If you bring her your problems, she will lose attraction for you over time, and she will leave. Now, whenever I talk about this, people lose their minds and start talking about men unaliving themselves. The faster that men learn that women don't care about our struggles, the faster we'll save the lives of men. Men off themselves because of their own ego investments in the Disney fairy tale lie. And when that fairy tale goes up in flames, they get zeroed out and they end things. Men do need a proper outlet for dealing with their problems, but going to their woman isn't the answer. Men need a tribe. They need a brotherhood. That's why I created my beer club. It's a monthly virtual hangout for men only. It's a place where men can be men. It's a place where men can talk about guy stuff without having to worry about offending women. It's a place where they can go without having to worry about being called toxically masculine. It's a place where they can go to solve their problems. Because men solve problems. Women cause problems, you dig? Visit beer.comeonmanpod.com. That's beer.comeonmanpod.com to sign up.
Yes. And then guys, if you are listening to this episode and you think that you might be in a type 3 captain dynamic and you want to turn that around and you don't know where to start, book a free call with me. That's a great place to start. Go to call.fixdeadbedrooms.com. We can fix this for you. All right. So what's the solution here, right? Well, the solution is to call me. But some guys, they want to try to do it themselves. That's cool. Get my book. You can try doing it yourself. But the solution really, the solution for all three captain dynamics is basically the same. Basically the same, right? Reclaiming leadership. You've got to become the leader. You've got to become the captain. And you've got to let her relax into her feminine and be your executive officer, right? So the husband must focus on self-improvement and rebuilding his sexual market value. That's number one. I heard this comment the other day because I mentioned how I'm not a big fan of attachment theory, right? And this guy on TikTok, some other red pill guy, I don't know, he had a red pill name. He even had red pill in his name. So he's really red pilled. But he's actually said something really good. He said, he goes, people who are anxiously attached are always the one that has the lower sexual market value in the relationship. So if you build yourself up to where you have the higher sexual market value, so you have a higher SMB than your wife, like she's going to start feeling that anxious attachment shit, right? That's the whole idea of dread. And how do you do that? How do you increase your SMB? Well, you're going to want to embrace fitness first, right? Fitness. You're going to start developing some hobbies outside of the relationship, some stuff that you're passionate about, things that you like doing. You're going to have goals that align with your personal vision, and you're going to create a natural dread effect, right? This is where we talk about passive dread. It's where passive dread is where you're not actively trying to tell your wife, like, hey, by the way, 5 girls hit on me today. You know what I mean? Like you're just naturally working on your attractiveness, and that's both physical and your demeanor and how you carry yourself. And then you start becoming more social. You start becoming more active. You start being busy outside the relationship. You know what I mean? Like you don't give her your girl all your time and attention anymore. Now you're not taking yourself for granted anymore. You're going out and doing stuff for you. And the thing is that when you do this kind of stuff, you naturally become a more attractive person that other people start to notice. Well, your wife will notice other people talking with you, and that gives you social proof. But when women specifically are like laughing at your dumb jokes and sort of making eyes at you and all this kind of stuff, your wife notices that stuff too. And she's like, holy cow, like he has options. I got myself a catch here. I better start doing something about it, right? That hamster starts running the maze. You've got to have outcome independence, right? You got to develop the mindset of outcome independence, not being dependent on the wife's reactions or approval. Another thing you've got to do with this outcome independence is be okay with dread not working on your wife, right? Dread's going to work. It just might not be effective at getting your wife to come around. You know what I mean? One thing, Athol K says in the Married Man Sex Life Primer, which I draw a lot of Married Man Sex Life Primer in my new book, Get Her to Fuck You Again, because it's a proven method. Like the map is a proven method to change the dynamic in your relationship. There's no reason to discard it. So I used it. Athol gets all the credit in my book for that. And, but I also incorporated like a lot of other information from other material, like a lot of No More Mr. Nice Guy in there, a lot of When I Say No, I Feel Guilty in there, like a lot of Rational Male in there, a lot of Corey Wayne, 3% Man, a lot of Atomic Attraction, all that kind of stuff, a lot of Practical Female Psychology, all that kind of stuff's in my book, right? But one of the things that Athol says is that basically he's like, I can guarantee that you'll end up in a loving relationship with lots of sex. I just can't guarantee that it will be with your wife, right? So you've got to let go of that outcome attachment that, hey, I'm turning my wife around. Like you're doing this for you. You're doing this to increase your sexual market value. And she either gets on board or she doesn't. You've got to be okay with that. You got to be okay with her not getting on board. Okay. Because otherwise what you're doing is you're doing this as a covert contract. You're doing this to try to get your wife to react in a specific way. And when she doesn't, that's going to build resentment. So you got to let that go. You got to be okay with it not working. But the thing is, the magic is that when you let go of that attachment, you stop being so needy, right? You stop seeking her validation. You're just doing this stuff and with this, I don't give a shit if she comes on board or she doesn't attitude. And the magic is that she's more likely to come on board because that's more attractive behavior, right? It's the same thing when you're out on the dating circuit, letting go of that attachment to outcome. When you go into a date and just treat it like a science experiment and you're not trying to get a girl to sleep with you. You're not trying to make a girl your girlfriend. You're just going there to facilitate fun and fuck. And that's your only job. And if you see if you like her or not, if you don't like her, okay, that's okay too, right? You're just collecting data. When you let go of that attachment to outcome, you become more of an attractive guy that women want to be with because you're not being needy, right? But a lot of guys are going into every interaction trying to make every girl like them, trying to lock every girl down as their girlfriend, and it pushes women away. And then they're like, I don't understand what's not working. Well, it works the same in your relationship too. Works the same in your relationship too. So you got to let go of that outcome attachment. You want to focus on being a man of value rather than seeking validation from her. Ryan Stone says it really well in Dread. If you want your wife to fuck you more, you've got to become more fuckable, right? Another solution is you got to learn how to establish boundaries. Okay. You've got to learn how to establish and enforce boundaries. Gently but firmly enforce boundaries to shift the dynamic from a captain wife to a captain executive officer. Right. And how do you do that? Well, phenomenal book. A much read. I highly recommend you guys read this book is When I Say No, I Feel Guilty. Bar none, best book on this. Okay. He teaches tools like fogging, right? Well, what's fogging? Fogging is like, let's say if someone criticizes you by saying, you're always late, right? You respond with, you basically, what you're trying to do is try to find some kind of truth in their statement and then agree with it, right? It's almost like agree and amplify without the amplify. So you go, yeah, you're right. I can see how it might seem like I'm late, You know, I'm late pretty frequently. I can see why you would say that, you know? Right? You want to learn tools like negative inquiry. Right. Well, what's negative inquiry? Right. So let's say your wife is bitching at you about like not doing the dishes right. Well, you ask her a question. You go, well, you say I'm not doing the dishes right. Well, can you tell me specifically what about the dishes that I'm not doing right? So I can make sure I get it done right. You know, like instead of her just like blanket statement, you go, well, what specifically am I not doing that makes you so mad? Right. That's negative inquiry. Another one they talk about in the book is negative assertion. It's when you acknowledge a negative aspect of their behavior. It's very similar to fogging, right? It's very similar to fogging. And then amused mastery. Amused mastery is a good way. Amused mastery, I find that when you're handling shit tests, there's basically two ways I tell guys to do it, right? Agree and amplify. That's where you agree with what they're saying and then you take it up a notch and make it absurd. And then act indifferent, right? Just, you know, like your wife, you're driving somewhere and your wife's like, do you know where you're going? You just go, yep. Right? Like that's acting indifferent, right? The thing is that when you start seeing your wife's shit test, you start seeing this behavior from her and you stop reacting emotionally and start seeing it for what it is. It becomes sort of funny to you, right? Especially if your sort of go-to is the agree and amplify and because that causes, you know, sexual tension when you're able to tease her a little bit with the agree and amplify stuff. When you start seeing that and you're not taking what she says seriously anymore, you almost think your wife's cute and adorable for being, you know, kind of having a little bit of an attitude, right? And so that naturally develops this amused mastery. And what's amused mastery? It's sort of like the idea that you've seen it all before, right? So you're like, you don't take it seriously because you're like, it's cute, right? Like your wife's being adorable when she's mad. But if you learn those tools, and learn how to better establish boundaries. Another one is broken record. Broken record is phenomenal when it comes to like really enforcing a boundary, you know, and that's where you just repeat the same thing over and over again until your wife says, fine. All right, we'll do it your way. And then finally, creating genuine desire. Creating genuine desire is a solution to this, right? So how do you do that? Well, you aim. That's the aim. That's the goal. You want to reignite your wife's genuine desire, right? And that's the way you do that is you have to increase your sexual market value to a place where she thinks that you're her best hypergamous option. Once she starts seeing you as her best hypergamous option again, that's when she wants to like have sex with you for validation. Right? It makes her feel good knowing that she's able to have sex with her best hypergamous option. That's validational sex, right? That's a reward for her. So you want to aim for raw, genuine desire, and that you do that by increasing your sexual market value through consistent self-improvement, right? And I think, you know, John MLD, he really simplified it to the core four, right? Muscles, money, game, and frame. You got to have all four to be her best hypergamous option, right? And I say it all the time, like your money, that's the beta side of hypergamy, but in a long-term relationship, you need to sprinkle a little beta on it. So that's the beta, being able to take care of her, you know. You want to basically instill passive dread, right? You instill passive dread by focusing on authentic growth that shifts the relationship balance. You've got to make this stuff a part of who you are at the end of the day. You've got to make it a habit. That's why at the end of my second book, Psychology Paradigm, I talk about reading that book 10 to 15 times because that whole book is about rewiring your mindset to have a more dominant masculine presence in your relationship, right? And then if you read Get Her to Fuck You Again, I also tell you to read that 10 to 15 times because that's going to reprogram your mindset about the relationship dynamic itself, right? All right. So the degree of difficulty here. The type 3 captain is probably the hardest one to turn around, okay? So it's a moderate to high to fix this. So success depends heavily on the wife's willingness to relinquish her captain role and adopt the first officer position. Now, what Ryan talks about in Dread is that oftentimes women that are type 3 captains, they've got BPD. A lot of them have like BPD and they're looking for an enabler. And so once you stop being the enabler and start taking charge and stop being taken for granted and stop letting her run the show, a lot of times she can't stand that. She can't stand that, and she might leave. But you know what? You're going to be better off. You're going to be better off not being in a toxic relationship with someone with BPD. You know what I mean? The transition will involve intense comfort tests. Like, she is going to shit test you fucking hard, right? She's been running the show for so long that there's no way she's going to trust you to run the show. Like, you're going to fuck it up. You're going to mess it up somehow. She knows it. And so she's going, like, as soon as you start trying to take back some of the stuff, she is going to test you like a son of a bitch. And so you have to be ready for that. You have to be ready for that. All right. She's going to test the shit out of you as she assesses her place in the new dynamic. Some challenges are that wives with deeply ingrained control tendencies may struggle to adapt, leading to potential conflicts. So more fighting. Although I talk about how to handle that communication, how to handle arguments in my book, Get Her to Fuck You Again. I talk about using like never dear, always Luca. That's going to be way beneficial for you. In those types of situations when she starts arguments and stuff about whatever you're doing. Okay. If her identity is tied to dominance, the relationship probably won't survive. It probably won't. And you got to be ready for that, right? That's what goes back to the letting go of that attachment to outcome. You gotta be okay with that. That's a big problem with, like Christian relationship books. One of the guys at Beer Club, a guy that's been following me forever. He's taken my advice for years. He joined Beer Club last year. He's been in the Beer Club for over a year now. He's cured himself of type 2 diabetes. He's completely changed the dynamic in his marriage just by like following the advice from the podcast and reading the books that I recommend and stuff like that. One of the things that he said was before finding like my podcast in the red pill space, he was a Christian, right? And so he was reading a lot of the Christian relationship advice books. And he said the big problem with those books is that divorce is never an option when you're a Christian, right? It's always like you've got to find a way or you're failing, right? And that's the problem with like in red pill. And red pill is kind of a harder sell because we tell you like, hey, it might not. Like, your chances are pretty good. Your chances are pretty good of turning this around. But in those small circumstances, like it's out of your control. You can only control yourself. You can't control other people, right? And so we'll tell you like, hey man, like at some point you need to evaluate, like once you get your sexual market value to a certain level, you're going to look at your wife and go, why am I with her? She's holding me back, instead of being the guy that's like, oh, I've got to get her back. You're like, God, what a boat anchor. What a boat anchor this woman is, right? I talk about that in my book that like there's a whole chapter on once you've gone through the work and you've made yourself a better guy and you've made yourself more appealing and really increased your sexual market value, it's time to evaluate the situation, right? Is she getting on board or not? And so we'll tell you like, hey, at some point you gotta cut it loose. You gotta let her go. And you won't see that in Christian books. And then also in Christian books, they'll tell you you're not a servant leader enough. You're not doing enough for her. You're not paying her bills enough and shit. And we're like, no. It's not about that. It's not about that at all. Right. It's about being more attractive and less unattractive. That's really what it comes down to. And you could be the most attractive guy in the world, but if she has no ambition to change or she wants an enabler, like that's not you anymore because you've done the work on yourself. You know what I mean? The potential for success. So a wife who was once loving and supportive can often return to the role when her husband reclaims his frame in leadership. Very similar to the the type 1 and 2 captains, right? Type 1 captain, especially, right? Type 1 captain dynamic is where you're like, she still looks at you to be the captain and you're just making a lot of mistakes. And so she feels like she has to take the wheel, but she still wants you to be the captain, right? In this dynamic, I often say too, if you look at the 3 captains, it's almost like a progression. It's like, I bet you 9 times out of 10 guys that end up in the type 3 captain dynamic started as, like somewhat captain, executive officer dynamic. They fell to the type 1 captain that then dropped down to type 2. And then finally the wife's just like, fuck it, I'm running the show now. And now she's a type 3 captain, right? But oftentimes it's, you usually get with a chick that's got higher SMV than you. Ryan talks about like a woman that, you would describe as you're punching outside your weight class. And I'm so lucky to have her in my life and all this kind of shit, right? Those usually end up being type 3 captain dynamics. This dynamic offers the most potential for overall improvement of the relationship, provided that both people are willing to adapt, right? But like I said, you can't change her. You can only change yourself, right? So that's the biggest thing that guys have to really understand. They can't. A lot of guys, when they come to me, they're like, "Oh, my wife needs to do this. My wife needs to do that. It's all her fault." Da 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 da. It's like, okay, sure, but how are you showing up in the relationship? You can't change what she's doing. You can only change how you show up. But the funny thing is that women are mirrors of their men. 9 times out of 10, women are mirrors of their men. And if you change yourself and increase your sexual market value, they come around, All right. Well, guys. Oh, yeah. Still waiting on the Audible version. Will it come out this week? Yeah, it should. Assuming that Audible doesn't find any issues with the quality check, it should be out on Wednesday. All right, guys, going to be a short episode today, but that's good. I've got to take care of business today. Smashing like as alpha. Don't forget that. Tune into the podcast on Wednesday. We're going to be going over chapter 2 in my new book, Get Her to Fuck You Again. Chapter 2 is all about taking charge with the male action plan. So if you haven't read Athol Kay's book, I highly recommend it. The only problem is that the Married Man Sex Life Primer isn't available on audio, right? And so I really wanted to include a lot of what the male action plan is, because it's so effective, and be able to get it into a book that has an audio version. So the audio version is going to be coming out. So check that out. Get Her to Fuck You Again. Books.comeonmanpod.com. You can get my other 2 books there too. Other than that, that's all we got. We're going to wrap it up here today. Do be sure to like, subscribe, hit those notifications. I have new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Thank you for everyone that sounded off in the live chat. I appreciate you. If you guys are watching live and you haven't sounded off in the live chat, just drop an emoji or something real quick. That helps boost us in the algorithm. Thank you for the super chats, guys. I appreciate that. That supports the show more than anything else. Follow me on social media. The links are in the description. Get on the email list, list.comeonmanpod.com. Get the ebook, She's Made You Weak, which talks about the betatization process, which will land you in one of these 3 captain dynamics. Get my books, books.comeonmanpod.com. I've got 3 of them there. 2 of them are bestsellers. Everything I Wish I Knew When I Was 18 and Get Her to Fuck You Again are actual official bestsellers now. Get in Beer Club. Our meetup is Thursday, beer.comeonmanpod.com. And then if you guys want one-on-one help with your relationship and you want to turn that dynamic around, you've been trying to do this on your own for a while now. One of my clients told me this. He's been reading red pill books for like 2 years, and he just had no idea how to implement it until he started working with me. If that's you, that's okay. All right. I can help you with this. Go to call.fixdeadbedrooms.com. All right. That's all I got, guys. We will see you on Wednesday.
This has been the Come On Man podcast. New full episodes served hot every Monday morning on your favorite podcast platform of choice. So subscribe now. Follow Paul on social media. The links are in the description. Now, go out and get it.